The dollars we're spending, we got to stop spending.
Sorry, can we get you to address his point about the industrial carbon tax?
How much will the industrial carbon tax add to the price of a car?
So the first thing I want to say is I'm going to address the broader point. The broader point is the entire absence of a climate plan from Mr. Poilievre, which, by the way, is going to put our industry and our country at a disadvantage as we're looking for new trading partners. Guess what? Most people want to deepen our partnership in Europe, in Asia. Those countries care about whether or not you've made progress. Second thing is, we're designing a program so that the big polluters pay Canadians at home for making responsible climate choices, for retrofitting their home, getting their emissions down, or improving otherwise. And that is smart climate policy. It's better for the big polluters, and it's better for Canadians.
Chair Poilievre.
Mr. Carney didn't answer my question. I asked how much would an industrial carbon tax on Canadian steel add to the price of a car. He won't answer because he knows that it will be very expensive because there's lots of
time
steel
to get the job done.
Cars. Now, well, Mr. Carney has temporarily
But do you know the answer?
hidden the
you
carbon
don't know the answer
tax.
either. You're just throwing out random questions.
Thousands of
You're just
dollars.
making it up, though. You don't
extra
know.
cost.
I do know the answer to that question. He's wrong.
When you add taxes to steel, you raise the price of everything that uses steel. When you add taxes to
argument to say, do you know the price?
When you
Okay, here we go.
When you add the carbon tax onto the price of, for example, fertilizer, you increase the price of food. So while Mr. Carney has temporarily hidden the Liberal carbon tax at the pumps while keeping the tax fully in law and planning to raise it after the election, he's also going after a tax on our industry that will ultimately be passed on to you. After a lost Liberal decade of rising costs, we cannot afford a fourth Liberal term. We need a new government that will fully axe the carbon tax, increase the jobs that we have here in Canada, and bring down your cost of living.
We've got just a little over 3 minutes left in this segment. So, Mr. Singh, I want to ask you, do you think climate change is still a priority from Canadians? You're out there. What are you hearing?
Absolutely. You speak to any young person and they think, we're seeing climate crisis in front of us happening right now. You speak to seniors who say, we used to be able to live in our homes without air conditioning, and now we're seeing heat crises in communities that never had worries about extreme weather. We're seeing flooding, we're seeing forest fires like never before. We're living in a climate crisis, so Canadians are absolutely worried about it. As soon as we come into a summer, we start seeing those forest fires again. It's top of mind for Canadians because they're living it, they're seeing it. And I want those Canadians to know, Mr. Carney's not going to
Never mind. I'll find a new route.
Unless I'm there to fight back. Mr. Poilievre wants to let big polluters pollute as much as they want. Poison our beautiful land, our water, our air. He wants to let them dump to our oceans. I'm going to fight back and defend our environment.
Monsieur Blanchet, on the issue of whether or not people still care about climate change.
I think people should be kept very informed about climate change because we are in a very strange denial situation of climate change, which still exists and is very expensive. And I'm sorry to crash your party, guys, but you are telling fairy tales. Clean oil and gas is a fairy tale. Large-scale carbon sequestration, I'm French, is a fairy tale. It does not exist. If Alberta wanted to exploit oil and gas and it were not a matter of pollution, I wouldn't mind at all. That's their business. Our own powerhouse in terms of energy in Quebec is clean energy. We are the best in our market is the northeastern part, Democrat part of the United States.
Turn left, and then turn right.
To create wealth in Quebec for Quebecers.
Let me
Let
give
us
Mr.
be different because we can afford
Mr.
it.
Turn right.
Let me give, I will get to you because I said I would. But you've taken a couple of hits here, and I want to give you a chance to respond to some of the things that people on this side of the stage have said.
Thank you. First of all,
Get
we
ready
do
to
support
turn right.
We want to ban the dumping
Turn
of
right.
sewage into our water. We want to hold large corporations to high environmental standards to protect our water and air. But we cannot do that by raising taxes and sending jobs overseas, as Mr. Carney has been
ready
proposing
to
do.
turn
That
left.
has been the approach of the last 10 years of the Liberal government. What the biggest companies
Turn
that
left.
develop our resources say is that we need to repeal the Liberal anti-development law C-69. a law Mr. Carney wants to keep in place. They say we need to repeal the industrial carbon tax and get rid of the liberal energy cap. We need 6 months approval in order to take back energy security and energy
We
sovereignty.
can summarize that.
Mr.
Sorry,
Mr. Carney, hang on.
sovereign
Last
and
word to Mr.
independent.
Carney in
Thank
this
you.
segment, please.
Thank you very much. You know, I was born in Fort Smith in the Northwest Territories, just north of what the oil sands became. When I was born and when I was growing up in Edmonton, early days, it was a fairy tale, quote unquote. But you know what happened? Canadian ingenuity, Canadian engineers, Canadian governments, both the federal government and the Alberta government got together and created and converted.
The worst pollution.
If I may,
may
may I finish? May I finish?
10 more seconds to finish,
Please.
please. Let him finish his point.
That's the opportunity we have. That's the opportunity we have in carbon capture. That's the opportunity we have in small modular reactors. That's the opportunity we have in hydrogen beyond. This country can be a clean energy superpower. My government will help deliver.
And that is time for this segment. Gentlemen, let us go to our final theme, which is called Leading in a Crisis.
Canadians know how to weather a storm. Canadians know how to get through a difficult time.
If, at the end of the day, we end up with the balance of power, Quebec is safer than it could be in any other scenario.
Now is not a time for weakness. Now is the time to take back control.
Canadians are always ready when someone else drops the wheels.
Okay, leading in a crisis is a pretty broad theme that allows us to explore many different avenues here. So let's get to it. Mr. Carney, you get the first question this time. We haven't balanced a budget in this country in 17 years, and 10 of those years were under your party. You have pledged to get us to a balanced budget in 3 years. Question is, how?
So let me put this in the context of leading in a crisis, which is in a crisis you got to plan for the worst. The worst is that the U.S. actually does want to take us over. Secondly, you got to have a plan to build, and that'll include a fiscal plan, and I will get to that in a second. The third thing is you need to respond in a crisis with overwhelming force. You need to think big. You need to move rapidly. The things we've been discussing today are a
Get ready
subset
to
of
turn
what
left.
we can and should do as a
Turn
nation,
left.
and we can deliver. And government can play a role, but its role has to be catalytic. And so our approach is that we will slow the rate of spending. It's been growing at 9% a year, operational spending. 9%. Slow that to 2%. We will focus on a small amount of capital spending by the federal government in order to drive enormous private investment up to $500 billion by 5 years.
Thank you, Mr. Carney. Ukraine surely constitutes a crisis. Leading in a time of crisis, Mr. Polyev, question for you. If the United States withholds support from Ukraine going forward, do you believe Canada should commit more to assist?
I believe we should continue to support Ukraine. Our party supported donating
Stay left,
missiles that the
and then
Canadian
turn
military
left.
was decommissioning. We supported funds and other armaments to back the Ukrainians in defense of their sovereignty. We also need to
Turn
build
left.
our own Canadian military because the Russians want to make incursions into our waters. We'll be buying 4 massive Arctic icebreakers. I'll be opening the first Arctic base since the Cold War in Canada, CFB at Iqaluit. We're going to double the size of the Arctic Rangers and fill the vacancies in our Canadian armed forces. We need a change to rebuild our military, which has been so disintegrated under the cuts and mismanagement of the last 10 years. But we can have a change because we have the best soldiers, sailors, and airmen in the world, and they will have full backing from my government if you give me the honor of becoming Prime Minister.
I may come back to that one in the open forum because I'm not sure we got an answer about Ukraine on that one, but okay. Going on. Monsieur Blanchet.
The answer was yes.
We'll get more details perhaps as we go forward. Monsieur Blanchet, given the U.S. trade war, should any talk of a referendum on Quebec independence be put on pause?
That one is easy. It will happen only after the negotiation is over, and that's a good thing. I want to say I support the idea we must help Ukraine, but we also must help the civilians of Gaza, and we must destroy Hamas, which is a terrorist organization. You know what? I don't want to be the leader of Canada. You will understand that. I don't want to be Prime Minister. But I can offer to be a partner.
Go straight.
A responsible partner. A collaborative partner. If Quebec is respected in its differences, in its aluminum industry and lumberwood industry and culture and French language and values of secularity of the state, which is the price to be paid in order to have real equality. Then, if we are respected, we will be a partner, and then even Canada will be stronger in its negotiation against Donald Trump. This is what I am offering. Respect us.
Mr. Singh, I watched last night's debate. You seemed very eager to talk about healthcare, so let's talk a little more healthcare right now. You have made many promises on healthcare. If a province says to you, we'll take your money for healthcare, but not your conditions on how to spend it, what do you do?
We've got to negotiate. We can't be giving away money without clear conditions.
Stay right,
we're in a
then
healthcare
turn
crisis
right.
now. A crisis that is hurting people across this
Turn
country.
right.
People are waiting desperately in line in emergency rooms for hours and hours. Seniors are waiting for years and years to get the care that they need for surgeries that would remove pain or help them deal with mobility issues. We're in a serious crisis. Healthcare workers are burnt out. They are overstretched. And what we're seeing is more and more privatization, and that is hurting our public universal healthcare system. So we've got to fight back against it. We cannot allow our public money to go to a for-profit private clinic lining the pockets of a rich CEO or investors instead of going towards
Go
care.
straight.
We need to make sure that we are investing in solutions where care gets to people, not profiting those at the very top. And so that's my commitment. I'm going to fight to make sure we defend our healthcare against the threats of
Thank you, Mr.
Americanization
Singh.
and privatization.
Okay, we now go to open forum debate, and perhaps, Mr. Poilievre, you get the first word here. This might be a good time to put a little more flesh on the bone of what you think Canada could do for Ukraine if the U.S. backs out.
Yes, and my answer is that we should continue to support Ukraine. We don't need to follow the Americans in everything they do. When they're wrong, then we will stand on our own and with other allies. And with respect to Ukraine, that of course includes support with intelligence, equipment, armaments, but it also includes defunding. Right now, Laurel has a monopoly on the European energy market because, frankly, the Liberals blocked exports of Canadian natural gas off the Atlantic coast. They blocked multiple projects.
Go straight.
Improve those projects on national security grounds so that we can actually
Caution.
ship Canadian
Please mind the
natural
speed
gas
limit.
over to Europe, break European dependence on food, defund the war, and turn dollars for dictators back into paychecks for our people.
Mr. Carter, you want to add?
Well, I want to go. The situation in Ukraine is very important. We've been a steadfast, Canada's been a steadfast ally. Canadians have stepped up, welcoming Ukrainians into their homes and supporting one another.
Stay right, and then exit
You know,
right.
my first month as Prime Minister, we joined the coalition of the willing to support Ukraine as the U.S. stepped back. So led by France, the United Kingdom, with Ukraine, a number of European nations, Australia, ourselves, New Zealand. That's an example of how the new world is going to be.
Exit
Canada
right.
participating in these areas and helping. It also means open trade. Mr. Poilievre voted against a free trade agreement with Ukraine. It means aid for Ukraine. Mr. Poilievre wants to cut more aid, including for Ukraine, or not. We didn't mention support for aid for Ukraine.
Stay
we
left,
have to stand by
and then turn left.
We have to be there, and this government has been.
New Democrats absolutely support standing with Ukraine and will continue
Turn
to do that.
left.
But I appreciate the opportunity in talking about leadership in crisis, talking about many of the crises that we're up against. One of the crises we're up against in our country, with the threat of Donald Trump, the trade war, and with the privatization
Caution.
and
Please mind the
Americanization
speed
of our
limit.
healthcare system, is the healthcare system. And what we have learned
Go straight.
today, Mr. Carney mentioned slowing operation spending. That's a cut to services. He said his plan is a plan to balance
Go
the operating
straight.
budget within 3 years. That's going to require massive cuts to spending. We calculated that at $43 billion in cuts. In fact, Rosemary Barton, when he was on the show on February 16th, he said we cut spending. He said it would be in operations. He defined it as transfers in health. And finally, longtime Liberal and former House Leader Karina Gould said that Mr. Carney's plans would mean massive cuts. That's the only way to achieve it. So, Mr. Carney, you think it is leadership to cut health care at a time when it is in crisis? I think it is wrong. You can't do that.
We will not cut transfers for healthcare. We will not cut healthcare spending full stop. But we'll
Mr.
have a
Carney,
detail, if I may.
Who do we
if I may-
believe, Mr. Carney today, or the one he spoke on Rosemary Barton's show on February 16th.
I did
The
not.
one
ready
that
to turn
repeated
right.
again that he would cut spending.
If I may.
Who do we believe?
If I may, consistently said we'll preserve all transfers to the provinces,
Turn
including
right.
the increases. We will preserve all the transfers to individuals, I won't detail them all, but they're. So we're looking at addressing an operational spend, which is about $150 billion. We will address that. We will make it more efficient, and we will do it in 3 years, and we'll balance that budget.
Mr. Blanchet.
I am 6 minutes
Turn left.
behind Mr. Carney, so I will speak a little bit longer. First, I will support any initiative which will bring Canada aligned with Europe and NATO in order to be stronger in facing threats. I believe that personally, I'm not more in favor of war than anybody else, but we have responsibilities, and our main ally is removing himself from the stage. So we have to step up. We have to.
You
do
have
our
arrived
part.
at your
I want to
destination.
go somewhere else entirely.
Your route
however.
guidance
I want
is
to
now
ask Mr.
finished.
Carney, if we're speaking about leadership here, if Quebec and Canada were to say, you are not being given a German government, there will be more conservatives than you would like, maybe more the New Democrats than you would like, and more people from the bloc than you would like. Will you accept, because you don't seem to be very eager about that, to deal with people which basically are more experienced than you are, as legitimate as you are, and would be more representative altogether than you would be being alone in your little kingdom? And I want also to propose to you all guys that 1 week after the election, we all meet, whatever the result, and we start dealing with this crisis together, because this is what people, either they are from Alberta or Quebec or wherever, this is what people expect from us.
Mr. Carney, is that something you could get behind?
I look forward to meeting with everyone. You're welcome to come, Steve, if you'd like. Week after twice, but
That's
also,
not
but
very-
in all
that's
seriousness,
not
no,
very respectful.
No, but I'll
That's
come.
not very
but I'm
respectful.
coming. On peut jaser un peu. Okay, I will.
Okay.
I come to the.
On jase, on jase.
Yeah. Okay. I'll come to the point. Look, in a crisis, yes, you need a team, and you need to bring the country along with you. So what I did in the first week was to bring the premiers together, meet with all the Indigenous leaders, and move forward in that context. Now, the question is, who's going to lead out of this? Whoever leads out of this, if I may, Mr. Blanchet, merci, thank you. Whoever's going to lead out of this is going to need to work
Let's do
with
this.
all the provinces, work with labor, work with Indigenous leaders, work with all Canadians to bring them forward in a united front. And if I make this last point, one of the things that has happened, which is a credit to those people at home, is the Canadians are coming together. And it's our responsibility to meet the strength of Canadian unity.
Still
To
lacking. I
advance
have
the
one
development.
small point to make. You will be elected, if you are elected, in the parliament where there are other leaders. I don't know if he called you, or Mr. Poilev, I don't know if he called you, but before yesterday, you have not spoken to me once, even if I proposed it so many times. But you say I speak to provinces' leaders. You're not elected in provinces. You are in the parliament where people are to make decisions which might not always suit you. But this is democracy.
Get
I'm
ready
gonna
to
jump
turn
in.
right.
Too much about.
I'm going to jump in here because I'm noticing what the clock is saying, and you brought up Gaza earlier, and I think our audience would be interested in hearing your views on the other major international crisis facing the
I just
world
want to
right
get,
now.
before we get that, just to finish up on the healthcare, I just want to speak to healthcare workers right now who are deeply worried about the status of our healthcare system, to Canadians who believe and love our universal public healthcare system, to patients who are stressed out. If you're worried about which Mr. Carney to believe, the one today or the one who spoke on Freebie shows and said he would
Mr.
cut,
I-
or for New
Right.
Democrats, we will fight to defend our
I
healthcare.
think you're
We will
supposed
never let
to really
anyone
like
cut
to
it.
hear what you have to say about
Turn
this
left.
question, and we have less than 5 minutes to go here. What role should Canada play in the other major international crisis in this world, in the Middle East and the war in Gaza? Pierre Poilievre, would you start us off on that? What role can Canada play?
Well, first of all, we must condemn Hamas, and more importantly, the terror sponsors in Tehran who initiated the attacks, the horrific attacks of October 7th. We need to defeat the terrorists so that all the peoples of the world can live in peace and defend the right of, yes, Palestinians to have their own lives free from the oppression of Hamas dictators and Iranian intervention, while Israel has the ability to live in freedom and peace. But I also want to say, we need to get back to the Canadian tradition, which is that when people come to this country, they leave foreign conflicts behind. The rampaging riots targeting Jewish communities is utterly unacceptable.
Stay right,
It points to the growing
then turn
chaos
right.
that we see on our streets after 10 years of incredibly irresponsible
Turn right.
liberal policies on weak borders, of dividing people into groups, of saying one thing to one group and the opposite to another, dividing and conquering. We must end that division and unite our people so that everyone feels safe, and that when we come here, we put our foreign conflicts behind and we
That's
stand
not
up
people
first.
come from countries from around the world and they care deeply about where they come from, and they should be able to do so. That's a part of being in our country, to have that freedom. The treatment of Palestinians has been frankly disgusting. Your treatment of by care and service people in Gaza has been disgusting. On top of that, people in Israel and in Palestine deserve to live in peace and security. And Mr. Carney, to date, not acknowledging what's going on in Gaza is now becoming a genocide. It's important to call things out as they are and not done that.
Mr. Carney.
We need to work to go to Europe. We need to work with our international partners, maximum pressure, maximum immediate ceasefire of this first return of all of the hostages, resumption of humanitarian aid. My government put in place $100 million of humanitarian aid, which is ready to go. With respect to where this ultimately goes, yes, two-state solution, but there has to be a viable and free Palestinian state living side by side in peace and security with the state of Israel. I will underscore one other thing. Mr. Poilievre rightly mentioned Iran. The Iranian sponsors, we have to be clear-eyed about the fundamental risks
Go
of
straight.
Iran and do everything with our international partners to check it and turn it.
Mr. Blanchet.
If we are working together, we will have to be consistent. The Jewish community in Quebec and Canada is harassed by a very little minority of radical Islamists. And we don't do so much.
Go
The law
straight.
in Canada says that somebody may invite people to be violent, to propose genocide against another people if they can be hidden behind religious motivation. They are in agreement with that, they are in agreement with that, they are in agreement with that. And we say it is a crime to invite people to violence and killing other people, and this is what is being done very often in Canada and Quebec with the approval of the Criminal Code of Canada. And we are saying this has to be changed. We have to change what we do before we want people elsewhere to change what they do.
Last minute in this segment, Mr. Poilievre.
This is about crises and leadership. And one crisis we have is immigration. Because of this Liberal government's commitment to a radical policy called the Century Initiative, which seeks to bring our population to 100 million people, they have allowed massive overcrowding in our communities. That
Go
has caused
straight.
housing shortages, job shortages,
Blame
and
immigration
healthcare
for the fault
shortages.
of your government.
And if I could,
The fact that you did
sorry,
not
I
invest
didn't
in
interrupt
housing,
you. I did
you
not
built 6
interrupt you,
homes.
sir. I did
That's
not
wrong.
interrupt you.
Don't
It is-
blame.
I do not blame.
your
If I
failures.
could,
Let him finish.
I do not blame immigrants. I blame the Liberal government, which brought this policy on. And Mr. Carney wants to continue with the Century Initiative. This is crazy. We have to get back to normal levels of immigration. Get rid of the fraud and temporary immigration system and ensure that the people who come here arrive in numbers that we can house, employ, and care for. That's how it was, and that's how we're going to restore
Thank
it.
you, Mr. Poilievre. That is our time for this segment. Those are our 5 themes, but we are not done yet. We are
Go straight.
entering the next section of our debate tonight. We're calling the leader's choice, something a little different. Each of you will get the chance to ask a question, any question,
With Mrs.
This is for these two.
Yes, I have had a long career in the private sector. I'm proud of that career. I've always acted with integrity, and it brings me with experience that I can apply.
Stay
No
right,
question here.
then
And
turn right.
And you serve and but the problem is who you serve. You serve to benefit those at the very top. You jacked up the price
Turn
of
right.
homes for people living in affordable homes as a strategic decision. You dodge taxes, and then your decisions as the prime minister show you're not prioritizing people, you're prioritizing big business, billionaires.
So what have we done as a government directly? So we've gone directly to workers using all of our proceeds from the tariffs, committing all of them for workers, the workers most affected in
The
this
employment
respect.
insurance isn't high enough.
Unlike others who
But the amount,
plan to
let's talk about the
use them to cut taxes. We are
The amount
focused
of
on.
EI is not high enough, though. You have to accept that. Right now,
There will be additional programs. I am fully confident that the next government, whatever government is formed, certainly defined in the next government, we will make additional programs.
But you didn't do that
for
so
those
far,
workers.
though.
Well, I can't.
could've.
Couldn't.
Rerouting.
Given that we're in an election process.
Could have increased
May
the
I
amount, though.
may I make a core point here, if I may, which is that when you think about workers here today, and people watching, particularly younger people, there is an enormous opportunity in the trades, in the skilled trades. We are going to build this country in a way that has not been seen before. We are literally talking about hundreds of thousands, not jobs, but careers
But I think
in the
people are
trade.
worried, Mr.
And
Carney,
that's
that-
why we're investing in apprenticeships and mid-career.
But I think people are worried, Mr. Carney,
Go
if the
straight.
Democrats aren't there to force liberals to make sure they remember about people they will forget.
Gentlemen, that is time. Thank you for that. Mr. Blanchet, you have the next question. To whom would you like to put it?
Mr. Carney, you avoided quite, let's say, skillfully the questions of Mr. Singh. But first, let me correct something. In 2008, not so much by your decision, 10 billions of dollars were given to the car industry, while 60 billions of dollars went to throughout Canada. I don't believe that's the right way to manage a crisis since you did not recoup the money from the car industry. Then, you have been the manager of Brookfield. It's supposed to be a green investment fund, but we now know that 50% of the investments of Brookfield is in fossil fuel. It's not so green. You seem to want to support oil and gas industry. That's interesting. You want to support prefab housing, and it's also the investments of Brookfield, but not in Canada. You want to support nuclear power, smaller reactors, which are more dangerous, by the way, and Brookfield has investments in Westinghouse. You have hidden the money of
Carney is not changing. Mr. Carney, in 2020, you reported you began advising Justin Trudeau. It's still on the Liberal Party website today that you are Justin Trudeau's economic advisor. You might want to update your website on that. On June 3rd of 2021, you said that inflation would be a sign of economic
Get
progress.
ready to turn right.
And you advised governments, including Justin Trudeau's, your Liberal government, to print money, which led to the worst inflation crisis in a generation. Now, that means that mothers went to bed with empty fridges and empty bank accounts, worried how they'd feed their kids, that seniors worried they'd be evicted from their homes, that young people believed they'd never be able to own a home in the first place. Now, in retrospect, you look back on the Liberal decisions that you advised Justin Trudeau to take. Will you look at the camera in the eye and
Turn
apologize to the many people who suffered as a result of the inflationary policies that you advised Justin Trudeau to implement?
You know, I said earlier, but I'm going to say it again. I know you want to be running against Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau isn't here.
Are you denying?
I am here. I did not provide any of that advice. I did not provide any of that
It's
advice.
on the
And-
Liberal
and I'm sorry.
Are you accusing your Liberal Party of lying about your role? It says today you can go to the Liberal Party website now, and it says that you
I
were
think
Justin
when you,
Trudeau's
the
economic
way
advisor.
you judge, from my view, is how they act, what they do when they have responsibility. Twice I was a central banker, and in both cases, if I may, in both cases when I was responsible for inflation, inflation was less than 2%. I'll add that when I was here responsible for the Bank of Canada, inflation was less than 2%. Our dollar was at parity. That is the kind of success that I can deliver for this country coming out of this crisis. And what is at stake here? What is at stake here? What is at stake here?
That gave us
If
the
we
worst
bring it back, if I
inflation
may bring
that
it
we
back,
have had in a generation, because the
Could I
policies
bring it
that
back?
you
Could I
implemented
bring
and
it
those
back?
of the MPs that are
I am
still
going to
in
bring it back
Go straight.
ministry.
to the
Fellow Canadians,
crisis which
the
we
last
face.
10 years has been about the Liberals. The next 10 years should be about
Get
you.
ready to turn left.
And that's time. Mr. Carney, good news is the next question is yours.
Well, I'm going to ask myself a question.
Turn left.
Actually, I'm going to ask a question which has been troubling me. And it's troubled me because, you know, we are in a very dangerous and divided world.
Who is it to?
I'm going to ask a question to Mr. Paul. We're in a dangerous and divided world. We talked earlier about the challenges in the Middle East, the threat from Iran, threat from Russia's aggression in Ukraine. We have the threat from China, which I raised. We have the United States, which is fundamentally changing its security relationships, its commercial relationships.
Go straight.
And in the context of that, Mr. Blanchet, Mr. Singh, myself, we have our top secret security clearance. We have our top secret security clearance. I got mine within 3 weeks. It wasn't hard, but I felt it was important that I had it so I could be in a position to be
Stay left, and then turn left.
take decisions out. And Mr. Poilievre, it is now 950 days, if my numbers are right. since
Turn
you've had
left.
the opportunity to get your top secret security clearance, and you've refused. Why?
Well, first of all, I have got my security clearance when I was a minister. I got top secret clearance at the time, so there's no problem getting that. But when the government made this recent offer, they said that if I got the security clearance briefings, that I could be gay under security law, and I could be prosecuted if I spoke freely about matters of foreign interference. Now, given that Canada has experienced China's interference by Beijing, the government of China, in 2 consecutive elections, I needed to do my job to speak freely without fear of prosecution, and that was not something I would be allowed to do. Even Thomas Mulcair, the former leader of the NDP, said that when he was the leader of the opposition, he never accepted the kind of gag order that your government, Mr. Trudeau's government, was attempting to impose on me. And it's good that I made that decision because it has allowed me to speak freely about things like the case where one of your candidates, sir, actually said that
to meet Canada's NATO commitment of 2% spending on defense? When would you hit that target?
I believe to 2030. That said, when we renegotiate our trade deal with the U.S., I know it's their priority to see us increase our military. One of the things I would say to the Americans is the more free trade, tariff-free free trade we have, the faster we can rebuild our military in Canada and reassert our sovereignty. And we will use that. We have heavy icebreakers in the north, Poseidon aircraft, fighter jets, a new base in the north, down the Arctic Rangers, fill vacancies in the armed forces, and
Go straight.
rebuild warrior spirit that characterized our military since the birth of our country. We will rebuild our forces and we will stand behind our veterans.
Thank you, Mr. Polyev. Mr. Carney, your question. You have cut both the consumer carbon tax and the capital gains tax increase that you inherited from your predecessor. Is that an admission that the Liberals made life less affordable for Canadians?
I think let me give you the rationale behind both of those changes. First, with respect to the consumer carbon tax, in
Get
effect,
ready
it
to
becomes
turn left.
too divisive for Canadians. Canadians received rebates. On the whole, they received more than the tax
Turn
actually
left.
was. But some have represented that it was a tax without a rebate. It became divisive. It didn't serve its purpose. It made a relatively modest contribution to overall climate goals. I got rid of it. First act made Canadians whole. Secondly, with respect to the capital gains taxes, come up again. I'll be quick. This is a fundamental issue. We need to build this country. Builders, innovators, entrepreneurs need to be rewarded. That's why I brought it back.
And that's time. Thank you, Mr. Singh. Would you change the existing cap on immigration?
You said that the level of immigration, first of all, we need immigration. It's fundamentally important to our country. And we speak to any small business owner, we speak to Quebec, we speak to farmers. It's fundamentally important. A couple things, though, we know we need to be able to set the amount of folks that we welcome to our country at a level that meets our needs. So I would ensure that we've got an expert panel that makes that determination based on our economic needs. We also know that we should be very clear that the lack of investment from Liberals and Conservatives resulted in the fact that we have a shortage of housing. That's an issue we've got to fix. We should also point out that even though we're worried about the fact that we're Liberals and Conservatives, Free Democrats will fight back to protect Canadians and make sure we've got the right immigration laws.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. That's time. Mr. Boucher, the Magna is now the only province with a carbon tax. Do you think that's fair?
It's not entirely true. It's not a tax. What Quebec has is a system by which we invite a commission on the energy. And so that reduce their emissions. If they do not, then they have to pay a fund, which is invested in reducing emissions. Our partner is California, which makes this a huge deal about reducing emissions. This is what we do. This is we compare what Europe does. Like we Europe, we can use there is some Canadian there. We have to be responsible because this is much less expensive than doing nothing.
That's time. Another set of my kids here. Left to right hand. And 30 seconds this time. Mr. Polyev, previously promised to fund the CBC as one of the very first actions of Prime Minister. Is that still the plan?
Yes, CBC will continue to operate as a self-funded Canadian profit that raises money like a media organization for sponsorships, subscriptions, advertising, licensing fees.
Caution. Please mind the speed limit.
Canadians who still want to listen to Canadians content will be able to do so. And at the same time, we'll allow freedom of the press so that everybody
Caution.
has their voice
Please
heard
mind the
and
speed
make
limit.
decisions.
Thank you, Mr. Carney. Next question to you, 30 seconds. Would you remove some of Canada's legal tax avoidance loopholes that companies that you have worked for have used?
I think that what we need to do is undertake a comprehensive review of our tax system and do that on the basis of the right principles. We've got to have fairness, sustainability, and we need a tax system, a corporate tax system,
Stay right,
CBC, like
and
Mr.
then exit
Poirier,
right.
let's cut it, and we would close tax loopholes and offshore tax havens. Mr. Carney to respond to that, and selling stocks
Exit
and
right.
shares to make profits, and then having less taxes on that is not hard work. And so those aren't the job creators. The people who are job creators are the hardworking men and women that contribute to our economy.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Monsieur Blanchet, kind of the same question. If you hold the balance of power in the next minority parliament, if it is that, what would be the price?
Stay
of your
right,
support?
and then turn right.
Respect for Quebec. That's quite easy. I don't want to go against what Canada wants to do for itself, but I don't want Canada to impose
Turn
an economic
right.
vision or a multiculturalist vision on Quebec, which is different in terms of language and values and secularity and equality between people. So I want to be a partner, and if Quebec is respected, Canada has nothing to fear from the bloc because we vote for what is good for Quebec. It only has to be good for Quebec.
Thank you, Mr. Blanchet. Now, we have one last question for each of you. We'll go right to left this time as I look at you. Bit of an offbeat question, Mr. Blanchet. What is your biggest regret during this campaign?
That's a very good question. I'm not very fond of regrets, I would say, but we should have started sooner to see that we had to create the environment for a deal in which Quebec and Canada would be one bigger than the other, but partners to be stronger in front of Mr. Trump and showing that maybe nobody here is the partner to let go alone without being surveyed or controlled or supervised by a Quebec voice.
Thank you, Mr. Blanchet. Same question, Mr. Singh. Your biggest regret of this campaign?
Not being able to meet as many people as I would love to have. It's a short campaign, and so I can't get to as many communities as I wanted to. I think one of the honors of my job is
Get ready to
to hear
turn
their
right.
stories and to take their stories and concerns
Caution.
and bring them
Please
to
mind
Ottawa
the speed
and fight
limit.
for those people. And so I want you to know, even if I haven't made it to your community,
Turn right.
I'm going to fight like hell to make sure that you're represented, that we never let any government cut our health care, that we defend the values that we care so deeply about, making life more affordable. That's my commitment to you. Even if I didn't get to see you, that's my commitment.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Mr. Carney, same question. Your biggest regret of the campaign?
To be honest,
Caution.
it's the same answer.
Please mind the
This
speed
is
limit.
an astonishing country. It is an amazing country. And the opportunity
Caution.
and the responsibility
Please mind the
that
speed
comes
limit.
of being with Canadians, hearing their stories, their challenges, drawing strength and ideas from them, and working to be part of the solution is the greatest honor of my life. But the regret is
Caution.
that it is also
Please
a
mind the
big
speed
country,
limit.
and it is a short period of time.
Mr. Poirier,
Stay right,
last word to you.
and then turn
I
right.
actually agree with these two gentlemen. I had a rule that at all my rallies, even when they're
Turn
really
right.
big, I would stand in front of the flag, greet every single person, and hear their stories, learn their struggles. And that was always touching that they put their faith in the Christians. But we've been in such a rush, so we have to get off to the next event, so we haven't been able to stop with that. And I want you to know I'm there. I haven't forgotten about you.
Caution. Please mind the speed limit.
Thank you, Mr. Poirier. It is time now for closing statements. Prior to the debate, we will box as to which order we would go in.
Turn
Mr.
left.
Singh, you get the first word on a closing statement.
Certainly, thank you. Because you voted for New Democrats, we were able to build this country that we love. Universal health care and pensions, because you voted for us. Because you voted for New Democrats, we were able to fight to bring in dental care, pharmacare, and child care. Because you voted for us, because you supported us. You have the power with your vote to send more New Democrats to Ottawa, to continue that fight, to make sure that no government cuts the things that we hold dear, like our health care.
Here we are,
To ensure that we can
safe
do
and
everything
sound.
possible to make life more affordable, by making it more affordable to buy your groceries and to get a home. I'm asking for your support in this election so that I can continue to fight to defend the things that make Canada, Canada, the things that we hold dear, the things that make us proud to be Canadian.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Mr. Carney.
We are facing the biggest crisis of our lifetimes. Donald Trump is trying to fundamentally change the world economy, trading system. But really what he's trying to do to Canada, he's trying to break us so the U.S. They want our land, they want our resources, they want our water, they want our country. We're all going to stand up against Donald Trump. I'm ready. I've managed crises for years. I've built strong economies. We will fight back. with climate change. We will protect the workers, make businesses, and we will build the strongest economy. We will build Canada strong. And that's the solution for the honor of this.
Thank you, Mr. Carney. Mr. Blunt.
For 260 years and a little bit more, les Français, devenus des Canadiens, devenus des Canadiens français, devenus des Québécois. You have tried to have them become Canadians, like all Canadians. But to no avail, we are different. So let's become a partner. Let's have for its children alive and for Quebecers, an ally for Canadians as equals in front of Mr. Trump.
Monsieur Poilievre.
Only in Canada did someone start where I began, get to the States. Born to a single mother and predominantly what I was told to be, raised me to believe in the incredible community that anyone who worked hard could do anything. That promise feels broken today. Many of you worry about paying your bills, even your families, or ever even owning a home. You're worried your kids will pay. But I'm here to say it doesn't have to be this way. It's change. We can restore the Canadian home so that hard work gets you a beautiful house on a safe street under a proud flag. We can do it with hope for change.
Gentlemen, thank you for a very spirited debate tonight. 2 quick points before we go. Number one of you celebrated your 60th birthday yesterday on this stage.